Welcome to Money Monday. As more and more people take advantage of online platforms to get involved in different forms of investments, they are also exposed to the risks that come along with being new to the investment world and not having enough knowledge of how negative things could be. One of the things many are falling for are promises of great and massive returns on investment, or ROI. Return on investment is a metric used to understand the profitability of an investment. It compares how much you made for an investment or paid for an investment to how much you earn to evaluate its efficiency. What questions should be asked when it comes to return on investment? Can some investments really return what is being promised? When is a return on investment too good to be true? This morning, I have got Oluwaseun Adesoya, who is the Chief Executive Officer, Myrtle Asset Management and Trust Limited, to discuss ROI. Good morning to you, I'd say.
Good morning. How are you today?
Yes, I'm fine. Nice to have you around. Let's get into the discussion now. As the online platforms that we have increased in numbers over the course of the years, and they seem easier to invest in. Now, we have also seen a rise in the retail investor. What do you think is actually pushing everyday investor or would-be investor to want to invest their money in these platforms?
There are too many factors that would be responsible for this. And one of it is technology. Technology to you can be a friend or a foe. So it makes it easy for you. Everybody has an Android phone or an iPhone, so it's easy for everybody to access these platforms. A second thing I would say is greed. Greed can be driven or fueled by so many things. One of the things that is fueling it, people will say poverty. But I'll say first and foremost, why do you want to earn something you did not sow? So greed is part of it. Unemployment. People, well, I don't know if it's a problem of the millennials or a general problem, but people don't want to do 9-to-5 work. People don't want hard work. Everybody's looking for, okay, I'm working, but the easy way, or soft life as they call it on the street. So maybe the soft life is also one of the things that is responsible for it. Another thing, if you look at it in terms of economics, maybe inflation. Because what inflation has done is, so the real sector that would ordinarily give you returns that should compensate for your risk is now giving you below inflation. And you feel, oh, I will lose money. Instead of getting a negative return, somebody is promising me something which is way above. Why not try it?
But then would you really blame those who are willing to put their money in areas where they feel they can get investments? Because as you've mentioned, we understand what the economy is saying. And like a cliche, do not put your egg in one basket. So people are looking for different viable ways to make multiple money, or let's say multiple streams of income. So would you blame them for wanting to do that?
Yes, I will. Because you're ultimately responsible for your choices. You have a responsibility to yourself to ensure that wherever you're putting your money is where your mouth is. So yes, I will blame them.
All right, now, before we now even begin to look at the return of investments and how realistic these platforms are, now, what are those top 3 things you think retail investors should be looking out for whenever they decide to choose any of these platforms to invest in?
The first thing I'll ask you to look out for is legality of those firms or platforms, as it were, because it's easy for me as a person to just set up a technology platform and put it on social media. Do we do background checks on these firms? No. So if you have a background check on them, you know that some of them don't even have CAC documents. Then the next thing is regulation. One of the things regulation does is put sanity around things. So now, even if the company is registered to do what? If it's registered to do what it claims it's doing, is it regulated? Because the truth is, everybody needs an oversight. I mean, that's another thing. The next thing is, what are they investing your money in? You should know at any point in time that I'm giving you my money. Oh, okay, you're planting vegetables. What are the risks? So you plant the vegetable, flooding comes and it sweeps it out. What cover do I have? I think we've said more than 3, right? The things to check for are actually endless, but basic things, legality, regulation, the assets being invested in, and then does the risk match? Because once you know the asset, then you know the level of risk. Does that risk match your own risk appetite?
All right, so what are those ROI investment platforms that you've seen so far? And how would you describe what it is they are offering in terms of return on investment? Would you say these are realistic? Would you say it's something that would-be investors can make do with and can actually hope on?
Interesting. So I've had 20% per month. I don't know whether it's the per month that attracts them. Because 20% per month effectively is 240% per annum. Now, what business would you do that would give you that kind of money? I think for me, that's the first thing. Maybe I wouldn't say it is lack of information, because I've seen informed people take those risks as well. So when someone comes and tells you, oh, you give me 10, my father actually told me about one. He wants to go into mushroom farming. And he says, all they're asking for is just 50,000 naira. And in 3 months, I would get 100,000 back. That's like 200% return in 3 months. Multiplied by 4, that's 800%. That way, none of us needs to work anymore if those things are true. So if we sit down and you critically look at those things, you know that it's almost impossible for you to, I mean, even if it's not likely that every mushroom you plant would actually come out well. It's not everything that will get to the market. So how are you going to be able to, how much are you going to sell it? If you take Nigeria, for example, how many people eat mushroom? And yet they promise you these things and you're willing to do it. So,
all right, as you say, you've talked about the unrealistic areas of return on investments. Let's now look at what are those qualities or factors that makes a normal return on investment normal.
And I would say when you say normal return is actually subjective, because what is normal to me might not be normal to you. And so there are basic things. I would rather put the question like, what are the things that I should consider that would determine the level of risk I'm willing to take? And the level of risk I'm willing to take will also drive the return I should expect. And one of the things basically is my objective. Why am I even doing the investment in the first place? If I'm saving up money for my son's school fees in 3 months' time, and I now put the money into an investment that will yield in 6 months, I'm already caught in trouble. So my objective for investing is one, my risk appetite. Is it money I'm willing to lose? So my life as a broker, I always tell people when people come, don't give me money you're not willing to lose, because I don't have control over how the market will run. And if the volatility of the market is really crazy, it could go, thankfully in Nigeria, there's a benchmark, there's a mark, it could go 10% up, it could go 10% down. So if it does that, and it does that consecutively for 5 days, that's 50% gone already. Would you still be able to sleep? So we've talked about your objective, we talked about your risk appetite. Another thing you need to pay attention to in all of this is timeline. I touched on it. You won't take a money for a short-term investment and invest it. There's always a mismatch between the asset and the liability. So the guy gives you money, he says, I need my money in 1 month. And then you go and invest it in a 1-year project, hoping that, and that's the foundation for pyramid scheme, hoping that in another few days before he comes for his money, somebody else would have invested. If nobody invests, what happens? You will be stopped. So those are things we need to pay attention to. If you understand your objective, you know your risk appetite, because that will drive the kind of return you want, and you know your timeline, it's not likely you will miss it.
Let's consider the issue of regulation. In as much as people who want to invest will consider some of these things that you've mentioned, there's also the part of regulations, laws, guiding and guarding, and of course, protecting investors, most especially their monies that they put in these platforms. Now, earlier on, you talked about the fact that regulators have not done enough. Now, how do you think regulators can actually be optimal in terms of regulating and monitoring these kind of platforms to ensure that those who put their money into their schemes are able to recoup on what is promised in terms of investments?
Okay, point of correction. I wouldn't say regulation has not done enough. They've done so much, but maybe there's still room for more. Um, in terms of regulation, if you take the SEC, for example, they've gone as far as saying that you can't even operate a bank account if you're not registered or licensed by the SEC. So how do these people get these things done? I think what we need to do on the part of the regulator is probably increase the level of education. I posted an article last week and somebody said, but SEC has a list of registered members. The truth is, how many people at the point when you want to make that decision would go to check the SEC website? So maybe if we educate the investors, and the investors are people, because the truth is, communication is available to everybody, even in the rural areas, but not everybody listens to the news. So the same way, the same energy these platforms are using to attract people, maybe as regulators and operators, we need to also put the same level of energy in educating them to say, you know what, these are the things you should look out for. If they don't harvest, then it's probably not true. So I think what we just need to do more is investor education.
All right, finally, before I let you go, Oluwaseun, now, for those who are hoping to begin or start investing in platforms or in areas or in schemes that would yield financial benefits for them, what are those 5 critical steps, initial critical steps that you feel they need to take to help them navigate the waters?
I think I did touch on that earlier. The first thing is legality of those businesses. So you want to invest in a platform. Is it legal? Does it have capacity? By the laws of the land, does it have the mandate to do what it claims it wants to do? Then is this a regulated firm? If it's not regulated, then why do it? Because what regulation does is put sanity around it. So because I am regulated, I'm not just regulated. Even the things I offer to the public are regulated. Somebody sits back to check and say, okay, yes, if you want to give this level of kind of product to this, who is your target market? Those things that's the job of a regulator, which me as a professional fund manager, I have to obey. I have a fiduciary duty to my client to ensure that whatever I'm offering my client is in their best interest, not just because I want to make money. Those platforms, all they want to do is make money off you. It's just the bait that they're giving you. And so it just makes a mess of whatever it is you're investing in. Now, the kind of assets they're putting your money into. So somebody comes and says, give me your 20,000 and just get me 10 more clients. What is he using the money for that will generate, like we make the example of the mushroom. If you plant your mushroom, let's assume you put 10 seedlings. Are you going to get back the whole of that? How much will you get back? Those things have to be realistic. Or I give you my money, you say you want to build a house or you want to build an estate. How long will it take you to build the estate? How long will it take you to sell the estate to the point of you returning money to me, so that I will know that, oh, okay, the return. So they say real estate, you can get 100% return within 1 year. So those are things we need to consider.
All right, thank you so much, Oluwaseun Adesoye, for joining the discussion this morning. Well, you've heard it. Well, it's not bad for you to want to invest your money. It's not bad for you to want to make monies on different platforms. But then, just as our guest has said, you would need to consider your risk factors, consider how viable it is, consider the risks associated with it. And you also want to look at if it is actually approved, if it has been registered, to know if your funds are safe. So that is it for would-be investor. We quickly run off on a break right now, and when we return, we will be closing the show with NC4 to watch.